Hello there. So from my last community post, you'd probably be expecting some sort of galactic super soldier rant about human beings and potentially their actual place in the scheme of things, and materialism and spirituality. And yeah, I kind of had that one lined up. It was sitting there, but really probably my ego had that one lined up, and that wasn't in the pipe at all. So what's actually in the pipe is, well, what was in the pipe as well as that one was a talk about the heart. And so what's actually going to come through is one about love. I mean, big L, love, true love. So I'm well aware that love is pretty much the word Jove, which is Jupiter, which means two-faced, love and hate. It's nice the way the languages play those sort of games with us. But I don't mean that that's a false duality. And I'm just going to throw that in again. I've probably spoken about this well more than once, but duality does not exist in the way that we imagine that it does. It's static. It's not a doing, it's not a fire word, it's not a movement word. There's nothing actually there. It's an object. Duality is an object. It's a doorway. It's like the two pillars in the religions, or on the tarot card, or wherever you want to see that. It's like a corridor that you can pass through. And really it's unity, right? It's one thing cut in half and separated. The one pillar gets turned into two, so that then, like all those traditions, then you pass through the middle of the pillar, right? But nothing's going on if you don't pass through. The yin and the yang don't do anything unless you spin the symbol. And then it's three things, not two, because you had to spin it. Or it's the axle in the middle, the bit that doesn't move, that stays, the dot that stays the same. So two is always three. How you know this is the gods are always odd and God rhyme. Even numbers are something else. And the numbers are 0 to 9. Doesn't matter what language we're talking about. They're the numbers, and then you compound them to describe things and go even further. And I'm not saying that the even numbers aren't deities or beings or anything as well, but the gods, like as we understand that in air quotes, the gods are odd. 1, unity, and then 3 is the next one, and then 4 is a doorway again, or a foundation or stability, and then 5 is fire, and it's moving. It's the anthropomorphic template: head, 2 arms, 2 legs. And then 6 is the 2 3s joined together. It's a thing again. It's not a god. It's harmony. It's balance. It can be out of harmony, I suppose, but not when it's in balance. It's those 2 triangles smushed together, the 2 magnets pushed together to create something. So it's once again a static thing. This 6 is balance, right? And then 7 is the elf star. 7 is the 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head, but 2 wings, right? The number that's outside of time, that cuts through time with a scythe, the Grim Reaper, Saturn, all of that stuff, all that good stuff. And then 8 is, again, another just a static thing, the infinity loop. It's the loop, it's the circle. But it's like hooked back on itself, passing over the same point. So you get twice around the circle instead of like hitting that same point once. Every time you go around, you're gonna hit it twice, like to really give you the memo, you are in a loop. And then, 9 is the expansion. So that's like consciousness again. It's just like duality. Duality is like a thing. It's not there's nothing doing. Nothing's going on there. It's an object. It's very static. And it doesn't really exist in here. Duality doesn't work. Positive and negative do not work without a neutral. It's always 3. It's not 2. 2 is an illusion. is an absolute illusion. And this idea of love and hate is the same thing. 5 minutes, taking me 5 minutes to get to this. That is an illusion. That's not what's going on. There is capital L love, true love, something above that little l love. And the heart is kind of like our metaphor or our cognate or our pathway into that. But the story that was unfolded for me today, which I felt was probably much more pertinent, or I was told was much more pertinent than the super soldier-esque, religion-esque tales to gaslight humans into thinking that they're much, much, much smaller and less in the grand scheme of things, and that you've got to fight for human survival because you could eradicate all the humans and everything would just tick along just fine. I don't think so. I don't. Maybe I'm punching in the wrong direction there, but I don't think so. That's not from the energetics. No, that's not what I see spiritually. That's not what I'm shown energetically. That's not what's going on here. But I'm digressing again. The story was bigger than that. The story was behind that. And that's kind of what I want to point to as well. The SSP stuff is really good. Just like anyone who is working in the physical military here, and quite a lot of the SSP people have done so, those physical military stories are also good. Your life story with your family is good. These are good stories. These are good metaphors. Like, we're just expanding them out, drawing them back in, finding where you can use. What can you use? How are you going to move it? How are you going to leverage it? What are you going to do with it? Like, are we doing something with it? Aren't we? What's the plan here? Like, getting expanded past that potentially to see what the bigger play is, which is where the SSP stuff's good because it expands it expands you out to a galactic level. But it's still lots and lots of just children in the sandpit throwing clumps at each other. That's what it comes down to. And the God realm stories are no different to that, of course. Big surprise. Because from my point of view, it's still all in here, still all inside of a construct, the construct. And there's something else going on outside of that. And so the story that I was invited into today was that we are moving. We are on the move. We are moving from a much more restricted space to a much more unrestricted space. And eventually we get home. And home is just love. So we'll just call it that. It's not, potentially not a place, but it could be. But it's just like true love. That's true home. And one of the big things that has gone on here, one way or another, is these beings imagine that they've separated themselves from love. And they actually can't, because love is all there is. Everything is made out of love. Even the distorted stuff, if like Lego bricks, if you could reach into the terrible distortion and pull out one brick and look at it in the palm of your hand, you would go, wow, look at that. That's true love. Everything is built out of it. It's kind of all there is, in a way. Which means everything can go back to it. There can be a return. And so there are lots of beings who have been convinced that they are separated from true love. And here we are in the soup, right? It's not a bad metaphor for where we are and what's going on at whatever depth or density, loca or level you want to imagine you're in. And so how would you go about reminding these beings of who and what they actually are and what they can never be disconnected from? Well, you would need to get in amongst them and you would need to show them their hearts and what's in their heart, truly, and how that works and what that feels like. But if you're going to come out from the outside and do that, but if you're outside, you're not in here, you haven't been tricked. You know your love. So you can't just come bawling into here knowing that you're love and like expressing that, because no one in here is going to be able to connect with you because they're disconnected from love. Therefore, if you were true love, they would be disconnected from you. They could yearn for you, they could want you, they could need you. They will not be able to connect with you because they are disconnected from true love. And so you would need to convince yourself and everyone else around you that you also are disconnected from true love and therefore in the same boat that they are. And then there's camaraderie. Then you are a human. Then you are a being of the construct. I can connect with you. And then you've got to remember who you actually are and how there's no disconnection, and very quietly, very gently just start a piece at a time walking yourself back into that space, or having one foot in the disconnected world and one foot in the connected world, holding that doorway open in the heart for these beings and just gently reminding them. But not by doing anything, just literally by being who you are, being at once disconnected and never disconnected, holding the paradox. And by holding the paradox, you can be a bridge. The tricky thing about the doorway in the heart is there may be more than one doorway in the heart. And so from the point of view of someone looking to get into their heart and open it up, you may want to get into that heart and pull it out in front of you and have a really good look at it and check how many doorways are in your heart. How many of those doorways are true love? There will probably only be one. What are the other ones? Where do they go? Who controls them? Who put them there? Good questions. Worth answering. Worth investigating. Worth interrogating. But when it's all said and done, no matter where you think you are, who you think you are, and what you think you're doing, it's most probably all about big L love. It's very, very simple. So it is about leaning into that feeling as much as you can, as much as you remember, as much as you're able. Because you might actually be a bridge for many, many other beings. And while we're kind of sitting around going, what are we waiting for here? We're trying to get this place sorted out. We're trying to get to the new place, which are like, there's lots of stories about what we're trying to do. Everyone's got a different story. We're trying to build a new thing. We're trying to repair it. You might actually be a being of true love already, undercover as a separated being. And your work might actually to just be here and remember who you are and be a bridge. And everything else will just unfold around you. There's nothing for you to actually do. You just need to do a lot more being who you truly are. So, something to think about, the simplicity of the message. We can get lost in the window dressing of technicalities. But when it's all said and done, what is the actual mission here for some of us? And how do we go about that? Is it a case of doing a lot less? Because once you pull all the shit off, all the implants, all the ego, all the personas, all the history, all the past lives, what's left when you pull it all off? There's only one thing that's left behind, and that's love. So much love. See you soon.